Millions of refugees have flooded into neighbouring countries since the war began in a desperate attempt to find safety. As thousands languish in refugee camps, others have been granted asylum here in Europe. For almost a year, our correspondent Fergal Keane followed two Syrian families in France. This is his report.
Once colonial France ruled Syria from here. But last spring in the city, we met Syrians for whom Paris had become a refuge from war. They gathered in a public park after the agony of journeying over desert and sea. By day, they'd nowhere else to go, and each night hunted for somewhere to stay. All had seen the terror of war, like this 10-year-old shot in the leg. And Yahya, who was a successful businessman.
So this is your family?
He was working in Europe when his wife and 6 children were engulfed by the war in Syria. He rescued them but lost his home. His wife, 8 months pregnant, is exhausted.
Do you think you will ever get the life back that you had in Syria?
Non, je pense pas.
No, I don't think so. That life is in the past. I have seen the world and nothing can compare to the life we once had.
This is all that remains of the world Yahya left behind. Most fled here because normal life is impossible, but others because they've been targeted by the regime. Tortured severely, like Bilal, who saw 7 people murdered in custody. With family still in Syria, he asked us to hide his identity. For him, France is a place of hope. Life in Paris is beautiful, and I want my son's future to be here, he says. When you have a child, the decision is no longer about you alone. Last spring, we filmed with the refugees as they sought shelter. Back then, they didn't know that they'd be granted asylum, but Yahya was hopeful. We're going to find a solution, he said. It's now 11 o'clock at night and they still don't have anywhere to stay. There are 2 pregnant women in this group and at least 6 children. All of this is happening in Europe. Eventually, a sympathetic businessman found rooms for Yahya, his pregnant wife and children. In this budget hotel, there was exhausted relief. A week later, they were given government accommodation in eastern France.
Hello, Yahya. Ça va?
8 months later, we caught up with Yahya. With their new son, the family staying with refugee friends in northern France. His family's been granted asylum, but because he was working in Europe when war erupted, his own claim is taking longer. He's not allowed to work.
I feel torn down within. I can't provide for my children. I'm in chains. I'm really scared of the future. I'm afraid of everything.
They long for home and don't want their children to grow up in France, though their baby was born here. I hope he'll be a good omen, Amun tells me, that he'll bring us safety so we can go home and start our lives again. But they enter their first winter in a place of industrial decline, where their unwelcome exile seems ever more permanent. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Northern France.